The presidency has responded to criticisms of the state of emergency declared in Rivers State by former President Goodluck Jonathan and Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. Reacting, the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Temitope Ajayi, said while Soyinka and Jonathan were respected statesmen, their opinions were personal. He said, and I quote, "Professor Wole Soyinka and former President Goodluck Jonathan are respected statesmen. Like many Nigerians that have offered varied opinions on the president's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, the two distinguished Nigerians have also offered their own opinions too. President Tinubu has a country to govern, and he has exercised his power under the 1999 Constitution as amended. President Tinubu has a duty to preserve the corporate existence of Nigeria. He won't allow any part of the country or state to descend into chaos." The Supreme Court ruled that there is no functioning government in Rivers State known to the Constitution of Nigeria. President Tinubu won't fail in his sacred duty to protect and preserve the country. Also, Chairman, Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party and former Senate President, Senator Adolphus Wabara, has condemned the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, describing it as an assault on democracy. The former Senate President noted that replacing, dismantling democratically elected office holders and installing in their place a sole administrator is undemocratic and alien to our Constitution. The BOT position toes same line as the party's governors and the National Working Committee. All right, Rufai, we see some responses to, of course, still an ongoing conversation around the, constitutionality or otherwise of the president's declaration of a state of emergency. What we do know is that it's been ratified by the National Assembly, and so the sole administrator has taken full charge in Rivers State. Your take on this story?
Okay, so there's been more criticisms over the weekend as regards the state of emergency. I think one of the strongest one came from former President Goodluck Jonathan, who had to stand like a patriot. And he did put the caveat there that normally, as a former president, it's not conventional for him to speak about an incumbent president because, yes, it's a public convention, but it's not that it doesn't happen. In other parts of the world, we've had former presidents speak, even campaign against an incumbent. If you go back to America, for instance, Barack Obama did campaign against Trump when he was an incumbent. He was a former president. So, but in this case, it was different. And his critique was not only for the presidency, the executive. Sorry about that, Dr. Martin. It was also for the judiciary and the legislature.
Yep. And
I think it's time for us to be able to go back and introspect that why did President Goodluck Jonathan say the things he did say? Because it's a time for critical national introspection, which we're not doing at this point in time. The consensus, even if there are opposition voices, the consensus has been in the suspension of the governor was not good, was not legal. The consensus has been that the National Assembly did not do a good job at a critical national time like that, going ahead with just a void vote to be able to ratify what the government has done. A lot of people feel it was a case of double jeopardy. The government talking point is different. So what's the government talking point? We had to do this. They would even quote the section about imminent danger. Hence, I keep asking the question, what was the imminent danger in Rivers State that warranted the state of emergency? They would say, oh, the Supreme Court, again, this is another government talking point. They would say, the Supreme Court said there was no government. But you see, the people that also talk about the government point, saying the Supreme Court judgment say there was no government in Rivers State, they fail to realize that what the Supreme Court enunciated that should be done, Governor Fubara has started to do them. And it was the House of Assembly that did not allow him to complete them. They will never talk about that in their own point of view. They will never also refer to things like the IJAP report that also berated the Supreme Court judgment. In fact, they'll tell you it's not justiciable. Then the critique by Professor Wole Soyinka, which was also something that a lot of people looked at. But I think I had analyzed that speech again. So it was not an all-out attack on President Tinubu. It was just a conversation around the principles, what should be done. And he went further to say the things we have constantly said, that the Constitution reposes so much power in the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that's the conversation about a national conference, to be able to whittle down these powers. Why do we say the devolution of powers? To be able to whittle down some of these powers. Then the other portion is the story that at least we have seen the proof of life now, because that was the bone of contention. Where is Fubara all this while? We're finally seeing that he's out there. He went to church, Salvation Ministries. Then the rebuke of the former Senate President, Adolphus Wabara, who's also a BOT chair. Some will say, oh, it's because of he's the BOT chair, that's why he's saying all of this. But he said this is an assault on democracy. And many parts that have argued in favor have said it's an assault on democracy. In fact, President Tinubu too had argued that state of emergency is argued along the lines of the fact that state of emergency was an assault to democracy when he was in opposition. But some people in his camp will argue for today and say, oh, it's not the case. You know, he had to do what he had to do. But there are some substantive questions we need to ask. Is it that every time now, when there's any skirmish between people that are pulling the puppet strings of a state, is it that the state of emergency is going to emerge? People have also cited the case of Lagos where we had the imbroglio in the House as regards the Speaker. Is it that the state of emergency should have survived? Yeah. What a lot of those opposing constitution are arguing in favor of is the fact that we must not make it a very frivolous thing where we just start dishing out state of emergency. And the last argument that it even contravenes the ethos of federalism and, you know, devolution of powers. Yeah. Because if a governor can pull out, if a president can pull out a governor, then where is the independence of this state?
Absolutely. All right, thanks. Dr. Abati, your take on this story.
Okay, let me see how much time is left to talk about this. Now, the president made a declaration of emergency in Rivers State on Tuesday. The Senate, the House of Reps, the National Assembly endorsed it on Thursday. And since then, there have been reactions. Now, if you look at the number of persons who have decried this declaration of emergency, they include Professor Wole Soyinka, as we have been told, who says this is an assault on federalism and the separation of powers. President Goodluck Jonathan, who says, look, people are abusing their powers. Investors will not come to a country where, you know, people just constitute themselves unilaterally into a lawmaking body, among other things that he said. Now, the PDP, Senator Adolphus Wabara, PDP BOT chairman, and also the PDP Conference of Professionals, CP-PDP, they've also condemned what has happened. The NBA, led by Alpha Musigwe SAN, has also said that the powers offered the president under Section 305 are not absolute, and that what he has done is unconstitutional. Set up the Society for Economic Rights and Accountability project. They say they have gone to court because what the president has done is unlawful. Intelligent people, you know, in other constituencies have also said, look, this is not the right way to go about it. Section 305, they give the president the powers to declare a state of emergency, but that the way he has done it is illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional, and to that extent, null and void. That's what, you know, those who want to go to court are trying to establish. Now, Ibokete Ibas rejected our advice and he quickly embraced it as a life-saving, as it were, it may be, allegedly, you know, for him. So he is from Cross River State. Yesterday I said he was from Akwa Ibom. Somebody corrected me that he's from Yaku local government area of Cross River State. So he has gone to Rivers of Cross River. He has gone to Rivers now. The same government, because the judiciary is part of the government, that said, an unconstitutional and undemocratic government cannot receive allocation, has now given him allocation. We want to know the amount that has been given to him. We want to know how he's going to disburse it. We want to know the reign of impunity that is now operational in Rivers State. And that's why I stand by my argument that, look, the appropriation bill is an act of parliament. It can only be approved by the legislature. Now he has been given the prerogative to exercise authority over, appropriation, over budget. The same budget that a validly elected person under section or under the Constitution and local government chairmen that are not in place under section 7 sub 1 are not in place, has now been given authority. The Constitution, as the NBA through Alpha Musigwe SAN Azagil, does not give powers to a sole administrator to run any part of Nigeria. And I stand by my point that what the president has done is to usurp the powers of the legislature and the executive. Any illiterate out there who is arguing with me is arguing in vain, because I will continue to insist on that point. Now, again, the Senate, Aminu Tambuwal, senator, said that when he, as a member of that Senate, looked at it, those people did not have a quorum, that there were not enough 73 legislators in the House. And he's standing on his point. So you have a National Assembly also that cannot act, that cannot call the president to order, that cannot accuse the president of gross misconduct on the basis of the same constitution in which he swore on oath. Another point, you had Ibokete Ibas swearing on oath on the constitution. On what authority? Nobody elected him. What you have in Rivers State today is an illegal situation. It's an unlawful situation. It's an unconstitutional situation. Now, Serap says they will go to court. As I've argued repeatedly on this same program, the issues that will come with Serap will be, do you have locals? I don't know which court they have gone to. Does the court have jurisdiction now? What is happening to the governor himself, Simi Fubara? He can go to court because he's the one who can say, well, I've been damaged in this matter. The governors of Bayelsa and other governors can go to court that this is an assault on the constitutional sovereign rights of states. They can go all the way to the Supreme Court. But all of them are cowards. None of them is going to stand up. They will just make empty statements. They will not go. Let us test the Constitution. Serap is now saying we will test the Constitution. Some other groups are saying let us test the Constitution. Let us test the Constitution. Because people have been saying, hey, Obasanjo did it, this person did it. Let us test that section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution. That is my argument too. But on top of it all, they say there is another explosion in Soku axis. Okay? And, well, we have not had further details about what led to that explosion. But what we know, and on the basis of which I've said there was imminent threat, the president can save the country. He can exercise his rights under the shall provision of section 305, subsection 1. But he has no rights to sabotage, dismantle both the executive and the legislature in Rivers State. That is my argument. And imbeciles and illiterates, can argue otherwise. But this is the way I see it. And this constitution, this same constitution, provides for freedom of expression. Let them go about saying, he did not suspend, he did not remove, he suspended. I think that the major argument that has been made by all the contributors to this argument, from Peter Obi to Atiku Abubakar to BOT chairman of the PDP to CP, concerned professionals in the PDP, is that the president should reconsider his position. He can suspend the governor, but if that is what he wants to do. But we are saying that it is wrong. The suspension is wrong. And we have a precedent in what President Jonathan did. So we are waiting. We are waiting for them. As for as for Governor Fubara, suddenly appearing, well, the order by the president did not say he should disappear from the surface of the earth. So he went to Salvation Ministries. All these people, when they fail, they go to God. But people should stop blaming God in this country. The problem is with Nigerians. It's with our leaders. The problem is not with God. I don't know what Pastor Ebieyemoye, what he's going to do. So Fubara should just not think that God is a problem. God is not a problem.
I think Fubara is exploring all his...
Let us pray.
No. Fubara is exploring all his options. He's seeking spiritual, counsel and prayers, because he needs prayers at this time, and hopefully he would also seek judicial review as well.
Leave God out of this matter. The problem is with Nigerians and their leaders.
That the spiritual controls the physical, which I agree. So he has gone to sort out spiritually, then he'll come and face the before he has the powers to face the judiciary. To be honest, I'm not very enthusiastic or optimistic about the fact that Governor Fubara is going to approach any courts. The South-South Governors Forum had released a statement last week condemning the actions and saying that they didn't support the president's suspension of the governor of Rivers State. But like you said, that's probably where it's going to end. I asked the question last week as to where is the Governors Forum? There are a number of people, these are stakeholders, because if it happened in River State, there's nothing stopping it from happening in another state. And in fact, there are talks here and there about Osun State might be next etc. Whether there are rumors or not, this is what happens when such a declaration has been made. It means that this precedent has been set, and if it's allowed to stand, then there's no stopping the president if he perceives that there's imminent threat to lives, property, or security, national security in a state to take over, whether or not the state is his, belongs to the APC, or it's perceived as being state capture. So what former President Goodluck Jonathan had said, I believe that very, very critical at this time. In fact, like you said, he had to respond, he had to say something because of how sensitive and important the nature of this particular subject is. He said usually he's one, and he has demonstrated that. He hardly said anything during President Buhari's administration, and even President Tinubu, he's just been a statesman and just been, going to other countries as well to act as an observer during elections. But this time he had to speak because at this moment, we're going to judge our leaders by whether or not they kept quiet during a time like this. And that's why I'm also glad that a former Senate president, irrespective of the party he belongs to, has also come out to speak about the illegality or unconstitutionality of this. Mr. Temitope Ajayi, spokesperson, one of the advisors to the president, had come out to say something. He said the Supreme Court ruled that there is no functioning government in Rivers State known to the Constitution of Nigeria. And I want to pose a question to him this morning. The current system of government in Rivers State today, with a sole administrator appointed, is it known to the Constitution of Nigeria? Would it be ruled to be said, or would it be judged to be said as where is the provision for that? Because we keep talking about how President Fubara was acting alone. He didn't act with a full, State House of Assembly, which we condemned at the time. We did speak against and ask questions and debated as to whether or not it was constitutional for him to present a budget to a three-man House. But one unconstitutionality does not defend another unconstitutionality. And the fact that one wrong was done, another wrong should not be instituted to correct that wrong. What we should be looking for is how to stabilize and restore democracy to this nation. Unfortunately, where President Tinubu would have had a legacy of doing that during his tenure, he missed that opportunity. And this just might be a stain on his administration in terms of how he handled the respect for the rule of law, especially his honor and respect for the Constitution. I recall during the day that he swore the oath on his swearing-in ceremony, and he swore to uphold the Constitution of Nigeria. Unfortunately, now this isn't the case in many instances, and it's quite sad to see. In terms of the separation of powers, what then is the justification for asking governors to not assert their authority or make illegal decisions with regards to local governments? And this is what we've been arguing. We didn't even know that we were going to get to a point where we'll be interfacing between the federal and the state arm of government, and it's quite sad to see. I think reason would mean that let the president listen to this wealth of advice coming from established statesmen, people who are ruled in their own rights at different levels, different arms of government. It's not just mere talk, it's not just table talk. These are experienced people who have come out to speak against, even Professor Wole Soyinka, who has been known to speak for the president at different times. I think wisdom would say that he should consider some of these contributions to the discourse and, where possible, retrace his steps so as to preserve the legacy of his administration and the legacy of democracy in Nigeria.